think that, for example, that a man can live inside the stomach of a fish for several days?
Yes.
You think that's possible?
Yes, I think that's possible.
Okay.
Scientific proof that Jonah and the whale is real?
I think there's sufficient evidence for it. Absolutely.
Okay. So I'll start the clock and you can just enlighten us.
Alrighty. Okay. So first of all, if you look at the blue whale has a mouth span of roughly 20 feet long, about 16 feet high, and about 20 feet wide. It's a mammal. It's an air breather. Its snout is on the top of its mouth, right? So it breathes air in. It roughly stays around 300 feet under the water. The deepest a human has swam is roughly 800 feet. On the way up, he got brain damage, but I mean, that's over half of the distance. Blue whales eat krill from the top of the surface. They spew out most of the water, and the rest of the water they spew out underwater. They generally keep their mouths closed underwater. They don't have teeth, and their throat is the size of a golf ball. So I think, obviously taking the divine part out of it, but a man could absolutely stay in the whale's mouth under those circumstances.
Did you say the whale's throat is about the size of a golf ball?
A blue whale's throat cannot swallow anything bigger than a golf ball, yes.
So doesn't that rebut everything you just tried to do? How could it swallow a person?
But yeah, he didn't swallow. That's what I'm saying. He stayed in the mouth. I mean, obviously when he came out, like,
how did he breathe?
Like the guy.
How did he breathe?
Well, the blue whale has an air pocket in its mouth. I just said that. It spews out most of its water. And a human can actually survive in a smaller airtight room for up to 12 days. So even if it didn't breathe air,
I thought you called in to say you had scientific evidence that demonstrates that the story is real. Whether or not somebody could potentially, and by the way, the Bible doesn't say whale, it says fish, but whether or not somebody could survive, yes, it doesn't matter. Whether or not somebody could survive in a whale doesn't tell you whether or not it happened.
Verify anything is verifying those two things, and that's what you do. It's like process of elimination. You use the scientific method to prove something. What you do is you go through all of the different things that you can prove, and you prove them with the scientific method.
Sure.
So what happens in the story is that God is supposedly directing Jonah to go talk to the people of Nineveh to express his displeasure, and Jonah doesn't want to do it. And so he ends up on a boat. And because he's disobeyed God, God sends storms to buffet the boat, and they start trying to figure out whose fault this is. And they finally decide that it's Jonah's fault and that they should throw him overboard. But then the crew decides not to throw him overboard, and eventually he ends up overboard and inside not the mouth of a whale, but the belly of a great fish. You have just spent a whole lot of time defending an absolutely pointless claim.
But it's not pointless, right?
It is. Because I just said so. Didn't you hear me? I'm right. I'm always right.
And I know, and I just showed you that it's possible.
No, go live in the mouth of a blue whale for 3 days and then explain how somebody wrote it down wrong and that you actually were in the belly of a big fish.
You'll fall into total darkness and start to frantically flounder among the gobs and gobs of small fish and plankton, which the whale is preparing for lunch. After the giant filters out the water, you'll find yourself in the midst of a viscous soup of all these creatures. Then he will begin trying to swallow all his food. But as previously mentioned, you simply won't fit into his throat.
And you haven't demonstrated why they made the mistake between a fish and a whale.
The Bible's written by people who don't know anything. Anyway, what were you saying, James?
Maybe he didn't know it was like if you were in the mouth of a blue whale and someone spat you out, wouldn't you be like I was in the belly of a big fish? Like,
no, I would say I was in the mouth of a fucking blue whale.
Yeah, because you know now. But if you were from back then, and Sri Lanka has the only residential migration of blue whales.
I'm sorry, James, but Jonah survived this ordeal, correct?
Yeah.
And so if Jonah knew that he was in the mouth of a whale as opposed to the belly of a fish, don't you think they would have got it right when they told the story? Or do you think they wrote it down before he got out of the whale?
Not necessarily. He got out and he thought he said I was in the belly of a big fish. Like, why is
it? Jonah doesn't know the difference between being in a mouth or a belly?
Apparently not. No.
Apparently you don't understand that. But thanks so much for the call.
Misspoke.
And again, just because something is possible does not mean it's probable.
If it's possible, then there's an essence of probability.
Non-zero probability, but yeah.
Yeah.
So,
it's bizarre. I'm happy. Like if somebody had scientific evidence of any of the biblical claims that are in doubt and suspicious, I'd love to get that sort of evidence. I have to say, there's a God who was punishing someone with storms, and that God is magic. And that God can make you live in the belly of a fish for 3 days if he wants to. That's how this works.
And there's nothing that I'm aware of in the behavior of a blue whale that would suggest they would actually swallow something large like a human.
Yeah, it's true.
So that would be kind of interesting to see some evidence of that. And there's nothing that I'm aware of in the behavior of a blue whale that would suggest they would actually swallow something large like a human.
Yeah, it's true.
So that would be kind of interesting to see some evidence of that.
Oh,
I don't buy your story at all.